You are 41 years old and you are reviewing a spreadsheet when the call comes. Not a dramatic spreadsheet, logistics, container manifests, import classifications for a legitimate freight and customs consultancy that you built over 14 years into something that employs 63 people and turns $8 million annually in declared revenue. You are good at this. You are methodical and calm, and you have a reputation in the industry for being the person who finds the legal path through a regulatory problem that everyone else treats as a wall. Your clients are pharmaceutical distributors, agricultural exporters, a regional airline. You have a daughter in her second year of university studying environmental law. You have a house with a garden that you maintain yourself on Sunday mornings because the physical work of it quiets something in your head that nothing else quiets. The call is from a number you recognize but have not seen active in 11 years. You know before you answer it that the man on the other end is your Uncle Cristobal, and you know before he speaks that something has ended. He tells you in 4 sentences, your father is dead. Your 2 brothers are dead. The compound in the Highlands was hit by a coordinated strike, not law enforcement, not military, not any government with a flag you could name. 3 other families. A coalition that spent 18 months building toward a single night. The Vargas operation, gone. The Medrano network, gone. Every major trafficking infrastructure on the continent, dismantled or absorbed in a 72-hour window that the international press is already calling the end of organized narco-trafficking as a geopolitical force. Except one. Your father, who you left behind at 22 when you told him you were done with the life he built and meant it, kept one structure off every ledger that the coalition could find. A compartmentalized network of routes, contacts, production infrastructure, and financial architecture that he maintained in parallel for 30 years as an insurance policy he never told anyone about except Cristobal. And now Cristobal is telling you, because your father told Cristobal that if it ever came to this, if the family was ever reduced to a single thread, that thread ran through you. Not because you are violent, not because you are ruthless in the ways the business has always required ruthlessness, but because you are the only one in the family who ever learned to think like a system rather than a king. You sit in your office for a long time after the call ends. Your spreadsheet is still open. The container manifest for a pharmaceutical shipment out of Rotterdam is still pending your review. Outside your window, the city is doing what cities do at 4 in the afternoon. Moving. Indifferent. Uncalibrated to the fact that the world you are about to step into has just lost every other occupant. You close the spreadsheet. You call your operations manager and tell her you are taking a leave of absence for personal reasons. You call your daughter and tell her you love her. You do not tell her anything else, because everything else is a weight she does not carry yet, and you will spend the rest of whatever this becomes making sure she never has to. Then you call Cristobal back and you say, "Show me the infrastructure." The network your father built in the margins of his empire is not what you expected. You expected something crude, a backup supply chain, a few loyal operators, a financial account or 2. What Cristobal walks you through over the course of 3 days in a safe house outside the city is a fully operational parallel structure that your father maintained with the same quiet discipline you applied to your own legitimate business. 11 production nodes across 4 countries, none of them connected in any documentation to any name that appears in any intelligence database. 47 distribution contacts embedded in legitimate import businesses, the same architecture you built for entirely different purposes, replicated by a man who never graduated secondary school, but who understood systems the way water understands low ground. 17 financial channels running through holding structures in jurisdictions where the coalition's reach stops at the border. The entire operation moves approximately $400 million annually at full capacity. You are now, by default and by your father's design, the only person in the world positioned to run it. You do not feel powerful. You feel like a man standing at the edge of a quarry that someone else dug, being told the equipment is yours. The moral weight of it does not arrive as a single moment. It arrives in increments, the way all real moral weight does. The first time you approve a shipment, not physically, not with any action more dramatic than a confirmation sent through an encrypted channel, you sit afterward and you think about your daughter studying environmental law. You think about the 63 people at your legitimate company who are now being managed by your operations manager while you are on leave for personal reasons. You think about the end users of what you are moving, the specific human cost of it. And you do not look away from that cost, because looking away is what allows men to become the kind of men you watched your father become. You look directly at it. You carry it. And then you make the calculation that every person at the top of an irreversible system makes, which is not a moral calculation at all. It is a structural one. The network exists whether you run it or not. If you walk away, Cristobal runs it without your discipline. If Cristobal is removed, someone from outside moves into the vacuum within 6 months. The product moves regardless. The question is never whether it moves. The question is only who shapes the conditions under which it moves. This is the rationalization. You know it is a rationalization. You file it honestly as one, and you proceed anyway, because the alternative is a vacuum. And vacuums in this industry do not stay empty. They fill with people who do not think about the cost at all. You spend the first 6 months not running the cartel. You spend them learning it. Every node, every contact, every financial channel, every operational dependency, and single point of failure. You approach it the way you approached every complex logistics system in your legitimate career, systematically, without ego, with the specific patience of someone who knows that understanding a system completely is the only reliable foundation for changing it. You find 11 inefficiencies that your father's operators had accepted as structural and that are in fact correctable. You find 3 contacts who have been skimming at a level that suggests they believe no one is paying attention. You correct the inefficiencies quietly. You remove the contacts cleanly, without violence, by simply closing the channels they operated through and redirecting the flow. They lose access and income and relevance. They do not become threats because threats require an audience, and you give them none. You do not use violence as a management tool. This is a deliberate policy, and it is also a practical one. The coalition that eliminated every other major operation did so in part because those operations created enemies at every level. Law enforcement, governments, rival families, their own lieutenants. Your father's network survived because it was invisible. Invisible systems do not generate the kind of heat that attracts coordinated strikes. You intend to keep it that way. By month 8, you are moving $180 million annually through channels that no intelligence agency has flagged because nothing about the operational signature suggests what it is. It looks like freight. It looks like import consulting. It looks in several jurisdictions like the kind of mid-level commercial activity that compliance departments review for 3 minutes and approve. You have made the cartel boring on purpose. Boring is the most effective camouflage available to an organization that needs to function in plain sight. The threat, when it arrives, does not come from law enforcement. It comes from the coalition itself. They did not eliminate every operation to create a peaceful world. They eliminated every operation to create a monopoly. And a monopoly requires that the market be actually clear. 18 months after the 72-hour strike, their intelligence, which is better than you estimated, identifies the outline of something that should not exist. Not your network specifically. Not yet, but the signature of continued supply in markets they believe they had cleared. Someone is still operating. They begin looking. You find out through a contact inside one of the coalition's financial structures, a woman named Elora, who handles compliance for a legitimate bank in a northern European city, and who has been passing information sideways for 3 years in exchange for an account that will educate her children in a country she has chosen and will never name to you. She sends a single message through a channel that uses 4 intermediaries and takes 11 hours to reach you. The message is 6 words. They know something is still running. You have 72 hours before the shape of the something becomes specific enough to be actionable. What you do in those 72 hours is not dramatic. You do not move money in visible quantities. You do not relocate personnel in patterns that create observable migration. You do what you have been building the capacity to do since month 1. You restructure. The 11 production nodes become 7. The 7 restructured around different anchor points with different operational identities. The 47 distribution contacts become 31, and 16 removed ones, each given a clean exit and a financial settlement that shows their silence. The 17 financial channels become 9, each one rerouted through new holding structures and jurisdictions. You have been preparing for exactly this contingency since month 4. In 72 hours, you do not run. You dissolve and reconstitute. The network the coalition was beginning to see the outline of no longer exists. What exists in its place is different in every specific detail and identical in every structural function. They find nothing. The search runs for 6 weeks and finds nothing. You monitor it through Elara and through 2 other contacts you have cultivated inside adjacent intelligence structures. And you watch the search conclude without result. And you feel something that is not relief exactly. It is more like the feeling you used to get when a particularly complex customs classification resolved correctly. The satisfaction of a system behaving as designed. The cost of those 72 hours is $23 million in restructuring, 16 operational relationships, and 4 months of reduced capacity. You absorb it. You rebuild. By the end of year 2, you are moving $240 million annually through a network that has no name, no mythology, no reputation, because reputation is a liability in a world where you are the only surviving cartel and every intelligence agency on the planet is now, to varying degrees, aware that something survived. Your daughter calls you every Sunday. She is working on her thesis about regulatory frameworks for environmental remediation. She tells you about her research, and you listen with the specific attention of a man who is compartmentalizing with everything he has. You ask questions about her work. You remember the details. You are, in the hours of those Sunday calls, the father you intended to be when you left your father's world at 22. This is the compartment you protect above all others, not because it is strategically important, but because it is the only remaining evidence that the person you were before Christophel's call still exists somewhere inside the architecture of what you have become. You think about your father sometimes, about the parallel network he spent 30 years building in the margins of everything else, quietly, methodically, with a discipline that his public operations never display. You understand now that the legitimate business you built was not a rejection of him. It was an inheritance you didn't know you were receiving. He gave you the tools in one world and the infrastructure in another, and he trusted that if the moment came, you would know how to connect them. You are sitting in a room that could be an office anywhere, clean, functional, nothing that marks it, and Christoval is across from you, and he is telling you that a new player has emerged in a southern market. Not a cartel. Not yet. A network of 4 families who looked at the cleared field and saw opportunity, and have been building for 8 months with the kind of ambition that does not yet understand what ambition in a cleared field actually costs. You ask Christobal how long before they are operational at scale. He says 6 months, maybe 8. You sit with that for a moment. You think about the coalition. You think about the 72-hour restructure. You think about the Sunday calls and the thesis on environmental remediation and the garden you have not maintained in 14 months. Then you ask Christobal for everything he has on the 4 families. Their structure, their contacts, their financial architecture, their single points of failure. Because the world does not stay cleared. It never stays cleared. Something always moves into the space. The only question that has ever mattered is what kind of thing moves in, and whether it is the kind that thinks about the cost. You open the file. You begin, again, to map.